Welcome to 805 Focus. I'm Dr. Cinder Sinclair with Nonprofit Connect, and we will be bringing you the latest on your favorite nonprofits, so get ready to be inspired. Our special guest today is Brett Hodges, and Brett is a board member with the Lobero, and he's a theater historian. Welcome, Brett.
Thank you, Cinder. Thank you. This is fun.
Theater historian. Oh, man. You've got some stories to tell us. Well, first of all, gosh, I don't even know where to start. You're celebrating your 150th this year. That's so exciting. I've been to some of those events.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever heard of a theater historian, so I want to hear about that and everything going on at the Lobero. So you're the man. Fill us in.
It's a self-appointed role. I sort of stepped into it. I thought no one has really done a deep dive into the Lobero's history in the internet age. And I thought, well, that's sort of the game changer. So I'm trying to chronicle every event which has happened at the Lobero in 150 years. And I think I'm at 17,000 events right now.
Oh, golly.
Which is very fun to see how the genres of popularity change by decade. Minstrel acts, vaudeville, melodramas are gone, long gone, but they were all the rage in the late 1800s.
Gosh, what's something that really surprised you when you were starting this?
I think the real takeaway for me is that the story of the Lobero is a story of Santa Barbara. Oh. I think it has influenced this town in more ways than any other organization. It has created Santa Barbara. Really, when the Opera House was built in 1872, it was only the second opera house in California. And it's really funny to read the Los Angeles Times from back then, which you can on digital newspaper archives.
Oh, God.
And the letters to the editorial were saying, Santa Barbara has the building but no people. We have the people but no building. So they were very jealous of Santa Barbara and its opera house.
Oh my gosh. So when you say the Opera House, that's the beginning of the Lobero?
Yes, Giuseppe Lobero was an Italian immigrant who came out to California in the 1850s for the gold rush, failed in the gold rush, left San Francisco and came to Santa Barbara in 1860, changed his first name to Jose to better fit in with the community, opened a saloon. But his dream was always to introduce Italian opera to America. And Colonel William Hollister was a big businessman presence in Santa Barbara at the time. And he underwrote the reconstruction of an old adobe schoolhouse on Kenyon Perdido and Anacapa Streets into what was the Lobero Opera House.
Oh, gosh.
Which seeded the hubris of Lobero's dream was sort of preposterous. 1,300 people could go into the Opera House, and Santa Barbara had less than 3,000 residents. So I don't know what he was thinking in terms of a business.
Far-sighted guy.
Yeah.
A dreamer, that making dreams come true.
A grand dreamer, yes, for sure.
Yes. So, okay, I want to come back to the history. I also want to, let's talk a little bit about the 150-year anniversary. That's a big deal, and so I know you've been having special programs for that, and I'm sure there's going to be more, and so tell us about that.
Yes, in February the theater turned 150 years old, which is a really, really big deal nationally. It's the fourth oldest continuous performing arts theater in the country,
really?
After just two theaters in Philadelphia and the Pabst Theater in Milwaukee.
Oh, gosh.
150 years is a really big deal for any theatrical institution.
Yes.
And we celebrated with concerts, and we will have many more events throughout the year. And then next year is the 100th birthday of the actual George Washington Smith, Luda Maria Riggs current building. So there are two annual celebrations back to back.
So 150 years, and in the beginning you called it the Opera House.
The Lobero Opera House.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then for the actual building that we all go to now, that's going to be 100 years old next year.
Yes, in the 1910s, the Lobero was getting pretty dilapidated, and it was booking second-rate acts, wrestling matches, lots of temperance lectures. A new theater, the Potter Theater, had been built, which was getting all of the first-rate acts. But so in 1917, the Lobero Opera House went dark. But there was a new group in town called the Community Arts Association, which we now know as CAMA. They wanted a venue that would have, it would be a perfect space for high quality cultural acts. After World War I, there was a movement across America called the Little Theater Movement, which emphasized socially relevant, literate, things, not vaudeville and melodrama, but more sophisticated things. And there was nothing in Santa Barbara where that could be presented. So they thought they could remodel the old Opera House, but it was built out of adobe, and it would never have worked. So they knocked it down, had Luda Maria Riggs design it, who was a pioneering female architect in America. It opened in 1924, and the opening was designed to coincide with the city's first fiesta.
Oh, golly.
So the fiesta in Old Spanish days were created basically to celebrate the new Lobero Theater.
No wonder you love being the theater historian. This is fascinating.
And going to fiesta events. It's sort of like two in one. Yeah.
Well, are you going to write a book or something? I mean, just share all this with other people? This is fascinating.
The history is so rich. We've created several films which are on the Lobero.org site. About the history. I'll talk about one special little event that we've highlighted in the 150th anniversary, and this is the reconstruction of, it's called the Lobero Golden Eagle. Oh. It's a 7-foot wide, 4-foot tall carved wooden eagle, which was placed in the Opera House in about 1872, when it opened. It was off of a shipwreck, a boat that had shipwrecked off of and found on Santa Rosa Island. This was one of the only surviving pieces from the shipwreck. Jose Lobero bought it for his tavern, his saloon, and then decided it should go up in the theater. And it's been in the Santa Barbara Historical Museum for about 60 years, but we just restored it and re-gilt it. And it's a magnificent, it's one of the most important Gold Rush artifacts still in existence. And it's now in the lobby of the Lobero.
Oh, okay. I'm going to have to make a point of looking at that.
It's the first thing you see when you walk in.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So let's see. There's so many things going through my head that I want to ask you. So many exciting things. So I know I was going to ask you. So how do you support the building and everything going on financially? I mean, I know you're a 501c3, and I know you probably depend on financial donations, but tell me how you keep yourself going.
Well, the Lobero has an endowment. In this 150th birthday year, we're calling it a celebration, and part of it is a campaign to raise money for 2 endowments. One is an endowment to support the building in perpetuity, which obviously is, it's a city landmark, a national landmark. And then the other endowment is to create a community access fund so that local arts organizations can come and use the stage at no cost or low cost. Basically, it'll be a $2.5 or $3 million endowment that will produce annual revenue that will let community groups use the Lobero.
Wow, so that would really benefit the whole community.
Oh yeah, right now there are active partnerships with groups like Opera Santa Barbara, State Street Ballet, the Santa Barbara Symphony, and lots of school organizations. And this community access fund will just make that much more rich and much more used by the community.
That is great. So a donor could look at both of those and decide which one or both that they want to give to.
Yes, please. Go to Lobero.org and look at our Ovation tab, and we have our history films and an explanation of what these endowment funds are all about.
So Ovation, that's the name of the tab.
Yes, on the Lobero.org website.
Yeah, okay, so a person could go in there and they can make a financial donation, just a financial donation, and or they can contribute to the endowment.
Yes, obviously there's an annual operating fund that Lobero and every nonprofit has. Yes. But this 150th Ovation celebration is a big deal, and it really will ensure the theater for another 150 years, if that's possible.
It's a big deal. Oh gosh. And so what other kinds of special events are you having for, I mean, I know you had the Chubby Checker.
We had the Chubby Checker Community Celebration, which was a blast.
It was very
Canyon
fun.
Bernito was closed off, and it was the one sunny day in May.
Yes.
It's like the last sunny day we've had this year. And he was such a kick, and he performed. The actual birthday celebration was a Jack Johnson concert, which you may have heard about. It was so memorable because it was there was a windstorm, and all the power went off in downtown Santa Barbara. We're all seated in the theater for Jack Johnson. The power goes out. It's total black, and everyone's sort of nervously sort of laughing. And it was so magical. All of a sudden, one person raises their cell phone, turns the flashlight on, then there were like 100 cell phone flashlights.
Oh.
And Jack Johnson comes out and he says, guys, I'm not sure what's going to happen because of the fire code. As long as the emergency exit lights stay on, I can perform, but the battery might go any minute, so let's just do it. So he stood up there unamplified and sang to the flashlights. Everybody had to be whisper quiet because you couldn't have heard him. It was so magical, and he said, this is one of the most unforgettable performances I've ever had. And it turned out he played for an hour and a half unamplified with no light. Anyway, that was a very special 150th birthday.
Yes, so.
And sort of apropos, considering that, in 1872 they had dim gas lights, and how could you have seen the stage very well, and no amplification. So it was a throwback to 1872.
Gosh, to put it in that context.
Yeah.
Makes you really appreciate it.
It was unplanned, but it was perfect.
Yeah, you couldn't have planned it any better.
No, nobody went out there, I don't think, and pulled off. Now, there could be a story there. Maybe something, I don't know.
Golly. And so I would imagine you probably use a lot of volunteers to get all your shows going and all the events and...
Dozens and dozens of ushers, a very active usher program, and it's so fun. I haven't actually done it myself, but I know some who do it. And a perk of being an usher, of course, is that you get to see the show for free.
Yes.
So as long as the crowds are not unruly, and you don't have to police, you just have to show them their seats.
Yeah.
And sit back and enjoy the show. And people who usher seem to really, really enjoy it.
Yeah, I've got several friends that do that, and they love it.
Yeah. Long tradition of that. It's a wonderful organization. I think the fun thing for me is that I can see the 150-year stretch, and as far as I can see, I think the Lobero is in the healthiest financial condition today than it has been in 150 years. Having a small theater in a small town has been challenging, and there have been so many low points over the 150 years where people really wondered, can this entity still exist? It didn't turn into a movie theater. It's never been a movie theater. It didn't turn into a school or municipal offices like almost every opera house that was built after the Civil War. This, just with good fortune, being in a small town that had a wealthy, cultured population, had just enough to eke through those real low years and make it to 150.
Gosh. So if I were a donor, I would feel really good about contributing to an organization that is so financially sound and has proven to be so for so long.
Yeah, as I say, it's really unusual. Nationwide, it's the fourth oldest continuous performing arts theater, and it's by far the oldest west of the Mississippi. And I would say of the top 10, certainly in the smallest town. So for a small town like Santa Barbara to be able to claim to have this cultural legacy and this important institution is amazing. And also, it's also been fun to see how the Lobero has actually influenced culture over the course of 150 years nationwide. Jazz has always been an important part of the Lobero, and it introduced, Dave Brubeck loved the Lobero, and his style of jazz, which was called West Coast or cool jazz, really started at the Lobero and then became, a national, international trend. And another way the Lobero influenced national culture was in the 20s and 30s, the 20s to the 40s. The Lobero was an important theater preview destination. and Hollywood celebrities, producers would have previews of plays here on weekends because it was felt to be a friendly audience. Santa Barbara audiences were thought to be sophisticated and have a good sense of humor. And if it got laughs in Santa Barbara, they thought, hey, this will work in LA, this will work in New York.
Yeah.
So the number of careers of Hollywood legends that started on the Lobero stage is unbelievable. Ingrid Bergman, Lucille Ball, Clark Gable, Humphrey Bogart. The list goes on and on. They really got their start by appearing in plays on the Lobero stage that were well reviewed, and then went national.
Gosh, so many people over the years, so many artists can look back at those early days that they spent at the Lobero. Isn't that?
Yes, jazz, the Hollywood golden age, classical music. The Lobero has an incredible heritage of classical music, thanks to partnerships with Kama and the Music Academy. I mean, all of the great 20th century classical musicians have appeared on the Lobero stage, like Igor Stravinsky and Sergei Rachmaninoff, Menuhin, Perlman, Stern. They've all performed on that little stage, 600-seat theater, which is pretty remarkable.
So, when you finish writing your book,
who reads books anymore? Maybe.
I think even before you finish, I could just see this being in the film festival. People would love to go watch the film about the history of the Lobero because it's so fascinating. In fact, it might be a 2 or 3 or more part series.
Well, we have an 8-minute history film on Lobero.org under Ovation, where we showcase a lot of the famous people who've appeared at the Lobero. Then we have a 4-minute film that Jeff Bridges narrated, which is a more contemporary explanation of what the Lobero is. And then we have this a film about the Lobero Golden Eagle.
I bet that's interesting.
The history of this eagle, which is just crazy, wild.
Well, I predict you're going to make a film with help from other people. I'm sure you're going to make a film that's just going to be a masterpiece.
Well, and it's perfect that the film festival uses the Lobero as one of its venues because. And I don't know if the film festival attendees really understand that stage actually, jump-started the careers of a lot of legends of Hollywood. I think we need to do a better job of communicating that.
I agree. I think people would be really interested in that.
Yeah.
So how to get that across? Wow, I'm going to be thinking about that.
Okay.
Okay, so we have about a minute left. Is there anything else that you'd like our audience to know about the Lobero?
It's got legs. It's it has influenced culture across the country for 150 years. It is a cultural institution that I had no idea of its importance until I started doing the research. I thought it was like any other opera house, which started after the Civil War. Every little town wanted an opera house, and every little town got an opera house. But very few little towns got opera houses that survived, didn't become movie theaters, and that exist to this day and that are still presenting first-class, important performing arts. And Lobero is our little gem. That, it blew my mind. Really blew my mind.
Big gem. How long ago did you start your research?
About 3 years ago.
Only 3 years?
Yeah, 3 years, and I'm probably 2/3 of the way through, but it's going to be it's a passion project for me. It's really fun.
We are so lucky to have you.
Oh, thank you.
To have you doing this important work and to be a part of the Lobero in this community.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for all of your great work.
Sure.
And thanks for coming on our show to share it with us.
Oh, it's very fun, really fun.
And thanks for joining us on 805 Focus, and we'll see you next time.